Hi, Jean.
Hello.
Hi. All right. Looks like we're all set up here. Sorry about not getting your email. It got threaded together with the 100+ replies I had with that subject. Okay. So if you want to just give me a quick audio check, just about 5 or 10 seconds of you speaking. Make sure everything's good there then.
I am bringing up the slides, and I'm not quite sure. I think you're going to give me control, and then I'm going to...
Yep, you should already have presenter privileges, so you should be able to share your desktop.
Okay. I'm going to go look and see. I'm not getting the usual thing that I get. Oh, here we go. So, participant share my desktop, and we're going to share monitor 2. I'll move the slides over there. I need to send you a PDF yet.
Yep, definitely can do that. You can do that after you're all done here. That's fine.
Yeah. I'm going to be dashing for a plane as fast as I can go.
Okay. So we normally reserve 30 minutes for Q&A afterwards. If we need to cut that a few minutes short, that is not a problem.
I booked an hour for this. That takes care of it, right?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll be very careful that we don't go over though.
Okay. Now let me go back here and make sure we're up at the top. Print. And server properties. Slides. Creator print. And eventually it comes up by finding that the, and are you hearing me okay?
Yep, everything is sounding good.
Okay, so I've been raising and lowering my voice and it's all coming through, huh?
Yep.
Okay. And you will let me know if there are any questions as we go along. This one is maybe a little less interactive. There's a lot more data. I'll try to, if I'm not going slow enough, let me know. And
okay.
We can also bounce back to slides earlier in the deck if people have questions.
All right, great. We'll get started in about 3 or 4 minutes here.
Okay. I have some contractors sitting out in the street ready to come paint as soon as I will let them in. They wanted to come a day early, which is a little awkward. So we're anticipating about 100 people on this? Whoops, whoops. This is not the right slide deck, Justin. Good thing we spotted that. Justin, are you there?
I am here.
Okay. You saw I had the wrong slide deck up?
Looks like the right one now.
the right one now. I noticed it when I PDF'd it for you. I'm doing another presentation. I'm going out to do another one. That's the one I had up. So.
All right, we will get started here in just one moment. Let me know when you're all ready, Jean.
I am ready.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Agile Friday. I'm Justin Burns from the Office of the CIO, and I'll be your host today. Today we've got Jean Richardson from AzureGate. Jean's going to be talking to us about when can we stop doing Agile, which is a very tantalizing topic. This will be a 1-hour event with 30 minutes presentation from Jean, followed by 30 minutes Q&A. Using the chat window, you can send questions at any time, and we'll forward on to Jean after the presentation. You can submit your questions privately to me, Justin Burns, or via the public chat. Agile Fridays are a collaboration between the Office of the CIO and Results Washington. You can find out more and keep up to date at ocio.wa.gov/agile-fridays. A big thanks to Jean and AzureGate for helping us out today. With that said, I will turn control over to Jean Richardson. You there, Jean?
Well, good morning, Justin and everyone. I'm also happy to take questions as we go along. We're going to be looking at a lot of data. There are also a lot of slides here, and so if the questions go long, we may have to shorten some time on some of the slides. I've given this presentation a couple of times now. In addition to being an Agile coach, an Agile project manager, and an executive coach, I also do a little bit for the Project Management Institute. I'm noticing some background noise. Is anyone else picking it up?
I'm sorry, I'll get that cleaned up.
And so the role I have with PMI, the primary role is the Portland chapter engagement representative from the global PMI Agile community of practice. And in that role, I connect people with opportunities for Agile education to people in the Portland area. And I go around and talk to people at roundtables, and some people are interested in Agile, some people are outraged about Agile. And one of the roundtables asked me to come back and speak to them on this particular topic. When can we stop doing Agile? It is indeed tantalizing. And fortunately, there's been a fair amount of research at this point. I'm not going to be talking about the efficacy of Agile so much as the pervasiveness of Agile in this presentation. So let's just go ahead and take this on. So you might have heard of Agile as a kind of revolution that's been happening over the last 10 to 12 years. It started in the software development industry and has moved out into all kinds of different areas. I know of one woman who has introduced it and implemented it in 3 churches. I have a colleague who is a civil engineer who uses it with her client who helps maintain sewer systems. She also works with the Department of Transportation, has introduced ideas there in the National Science Foundation. And those of you who are in state government have probably heard about the top-down mandate from the federal CIO a few years back, indicating that Agile is the way to go on large, complex IT projects. And if anyone has questions about that, I can send a link to the report later on, probably Monday, as I'm about to fly out after this conversation. So the initial penetration was in software, and it has broadened out drastically. And there are oodles of jobs for Agile literate folks. There was a survey that came out about 2 years ago, and the ratio was somewhere between 6 to 1 and 10 to 1 jobs for every person who was qualified and understood Agile. So that was pretty tasty for people who had that background, and it made it attractive to get the background, which is kind of part of what has helped Agile spread. So PMI watched this for a period of years. I remember going to the Washington Global Conference several years ago. It must have been around 2009. And they were kind of shoehorning Agile into some presentations then. The Agile community of practice was alive and well at that point. And then people were just starting to talk about things like complexity and chaos theory in the context of project management. Well, a couple of years ago, they created the PMI ACP, and one thing that is very drastically different about the ACP is that PMI did not create or publish the materials that it was recommending that people read to prep for this test. They were standard references that have been around for a while, published by a well-known Agilist. And that was quite a departure for PMI. Now there are studies and prep guides now. I have at least 3 of them myself. The Agile community of practice is, I believe, equal in size. It is one of the top 2, and it's equal in size to the government community of practice. And the 5th edition of the PMBOK was especially up at the front, strongly influenced by Agile, and then last October, PMI published an extension to the 5th edition of the PMBOK all about software project management, and that is very Agile heavy, and it's worth a good read as well. If anyone's interested, a colleague in Portland and I did a review of that, and I can send you a link to that. It's in the chapter newsletter down here. So the PMI Pulse of the Profession, published in 2012, was all about organizational agility, and I believe this report that I'm going to be quoting a lot from is free to non-members, and if you aren't able to find it, I can send you a PDF of it. And Justin, if people are interested, just keep a list and send me a list of what they're interested in.
Okay, will do.
Roles of respondents to the survey. So what we're talking about here is how many people responded, 1,239, and what kind of roles were they in. 72% were in some aspect of project manager, project coordinator, project manager, program manager, PMO, lead, whatever. 18% executive, and 8% were functional managers. The annual revenue, and this kind of gives us a sizing of the organization, was fairly well spread, 32% less than 50 million, 28% between 50 and 1 billion, only 10% did not report their revenue. So that's a pretty nice spread across 1,200 responders. And then in the management role and the industry, they are breaking down here what kind of project management roles people are in. You can see there's quite a diversity here as well. Then some of the industries, 23% information technology, of course, that's where Agile came from, 13% consulting, 11% financial services, down to 6% in government. And this was a report that was done about, well, the report was done 2 years ago. The research was probably done the year before that. So countries participating, of course, North America was the heavy hitter, but Europe, Middle East, Africa also strongly represented. Asia Pacific and Latin America and the Caribbean about equally represented. And PMI, though it is a global organization, it's based on the East Coast in North America, and that's where its strongest footprint is. So here's something interesting. Rather than organizations becoming more agile, they have become less agile. So they report that they are less agile today than they were 4 years ago. You know, but the high agility, moderate, low agility, they're all decreasing, 34%. And low agility now, 12% in the high agility. 54% were in the moderate agility. So some of those who were in the 23% in 2008 have probably fallen down into moderate or low range. So we want to be thinking about why are organizations less agile than they were 4 years ago when the Agile movement has been expanding so rapidly, and then we're seeing such great press about it. And not only that, knowing these stats, PMI went ahead and invested a lot in getting training programs, very expensive education programs, and a certification standard out there to train their membership in Agile. And I want to make clear that the ACT covers Scrum, Kanban, XP, and some Lean, and I believe some system thinking. So it's not one particular framework. It covers 3 frameworks plus. So they wanted to be clear in their report what they mean by agility. And this looks like what traditional Agilists mean by agility: maintain fast pace, be very responsive, seize opportunities, be flexible, quick to adapt, and maintain your competitive edge by being agile. So they were aligned with traditional Agilists there. And then let's look at the practices and characteristics of agility. The first time I gave this presentation, it was in a room of project managers, many of whom didn't have much background in Agile, but one engineer had come with a PM from a very technical organization, and I recognized this guy from the Agile community, and he was definitely squinting at me and making sure I wasn't saying anything wrong. And I think he was pleasantly surprised when he saw the practices and characteristics of agility here, because this is what a traditional Agilist is going to be looking for as well. That 75% of the people saying the practices and characteristics of agility we find attractive are that quick to respond to strategic opportunities, shorter production review cycle, 64%. Focus on change management, really built into these frameworks. Integrating voice of the customer, also built into the roles. Focus on risk management, built into the way we do our work on a daily basis. Interdisciplinary project teams, so those are the cross-functional teams where it allows the T-shaped people broad and deep in one particular area. Elimination of organizational silos, we're constantly trying to collaborate, speak across boundaries, build the social skills to do that. And sometimes that means we have to build a little bit of technical expertise in the other space that we didn't previously have, just so that we can understand the vocabulary of the people we're trying to build these relationships with and have the conversations with it. The contingency planning, the part of the risk management, and then use of iterative project management practices so that we're constantly elaborating a product and leveraging technology, which of course, leveraging technology, that is where Agile came from. In fact, my first Agile trainer, Ken Schraber, said that modern integrated development environments, IDEs, made Agile possible, and those of you who are developers and listening in might understand why that is. So agility as a competitive edge. What do these companies find attractive there? So in the last 2 to 3 years that they were researching, 45% of organizations found more success using Agile practices, and reflects back that though many were using Agile practices before, they became less Agile. We're going to get some more insight into why this was happening here in a few slides. High agility organizations had increased success. Low agility organizations, not so much. Benefits of organizational agility. So very similar to an earlier slide. Faster response to changing market conditions. These benefits are what these organizations are looking for, and why, though they are struggling with agility, they continue to stay in the game, because they want that overall improved organizational efficiency, improved customer satisfaction, more profitable business results, and so on. They know it's possible. They see other organizations do it, but for some reason they're having a hard time doing it themselves in some cases. And maybe they were doing it well and then they got tired or distracted or just got too hard and they started to slacken their discipline. Project success metrics by level of agility. So we've got the low agility in the light blue, the high agility in the dark blue. So we're looking at these 4 metrics: on time, on budget, we like that, meeting goals and business objectives, that's quality, some people will put scope around that, meeting and exceeding ROI. So the low agility organizations have a harder time being successful with these metrics than the high agility organizations. Well, that might be part of why organizations whose agility has declined, they're still in the game, because they know that they can get these metrics if they continue to pursue agility. So practices that lead to agility lead to greater success, seeing increased success unchanged, and seeing decreased success. So standardized through all departments, meaning that if we standardize our practices, and you'll see many organizations, the most popular framework is Scrum, and a recent survey I saw from version 1, I think it was, the hybrids, Scrum hybrids are really catching up quickly, but overall Scrum is in the game. So if a PMO decides to adopt Agile, they're typically saying that they're adopting Scrum or some variant of that. So you're going to see increased success, their research shows, if everybody's in the same framework. You'll be more effective at change management and more effective at risk management. Do we have any questions so far?
I don't have any in the queue right now, no.
All right.
They're pretty well trained to ask them at the end, just so everybody knows. Jean would love it if you asked questions during the talk.
Then I may just blast ahead so we have time.
Okay,
I'm going to
great.
show you a couple of different screenshots here, and they come out of a monthly publication available to PMI members, and what they're looking at is how many members and all the certifications that they offer, what's the adoption rate, and you can see that's the April 2014 data. That's the most recent data that they had published. And I went back and asked the people who compile this data on the East Coast, and they came back and gave me some updated numbers, but the numbers haven't changed that much. So that's April. Now, when I first did this presentation, the data looked like this. The PMI ACP down at the bottom, 3,893, that's September 2013, and then 5,511. The rumor had been that the PMI ACP may outpace the PMP, and in a minute we'll take a look at some statistics on that. Something that's interesting about this certification and a real departure for PMI is you do not have to have this certification to get this certification, but to get any of these three, you have to have this certification first. The education hours and the experience hours to sit for the test are similar, but the test is also radically different. It really is focused on building competency and agility. The market is crying out for it, so PMI is going after it. So let's take a look at what kind of numbers we're actually seeing September of 2013 to April of 2014. 6.31. It is slowly catching up to the PMP, just as people in the industry had a sense that it was doing. Well, what do we have going on in the market, and what's driving people to get this certification? Well, look at the hiring trends. Scrum Master, here we go. Agile Project Manager, there we go. And in fact, when I started digging into this data locally, because this is national data, not local data, and I wanted to make it more regionally appropriate, I did things like pull down all of the job postings for the local chapter for project managers and count the skills that they were requiring. And I also called people who were recruiting for the position and asked them about these numbers, and they said, you know, these numbers are entirely accurate. We don't even look at the same sets of people when we are hiring for these two different roles. Scrum Masters and project managers are different people, and they don't mix, which is pretty interesting. In Portland, we have put some programs in place in the last year to help them mix a little bit, because the cross-pollination is really important. Now, if you ask yourself, when can we stop doing Agile, and you think about the data we were looking at previously about the need for how organizations find Agile extremely attractive and what it is they're pursuing. They're pursuing things that a lot of project managers would be worthy of pursuing. And when you look at the need for people with these backgrounds, you know, 6 to 10 jobs for every person who's qualified, and you can see that the Scrum Masters are getting jobs like crazy and the project managers not so much. I go to PMI meetings, and there are usually plenty of unemployed PMs, and my clients looking for Scrum Masters can look for months before they find a qualified Scrum Master. Maybe the answer to when can we stop doing Agile is, well, if you're in IT or consulting, and increasingly even government, it kind of depends on your retirement plan. If you have good retirement savings and you can retire fairly soon, or if you're interested in transitioning to an industry where Agile has not penetrated and is not growing, then you can stop doing Agile anytime you want. But if you want to remain employable, you probably want to align with the kinds of things that organizations are looking for and help them meet the metrics that we were looking at up here. On time, on budget, meeting goals and business objectives, meeting and exceeding ROI. Whether you're a project manager or a functional manager or a Scrum Master, all of these things are attractive. And the Agile Project Manager role is still actually being defined. The ACP doesn't prepare someone to be a Scrum Master. It prepares them to understand Scrum to some extent. But there is a role for an Agile project manager, and some organizations are kind of trying to get their arms around that. So a case in point is a project that a client of mine asked me to come help them with about 2.5 months ago. 2 years earlier, I had spent a year in their application delivery environment coaching Scrum Masters for a year. Then I went away and coached Scrum Masters in 3 other organizations. This time they wanted me to come back as a project manager into the PMO to help with an Agile project that had actually just run away from the organization. And people on the Agile side of the house were ironically advocating for me to take on the Scrum Master role and the PM role, and I advocated for keeping the 2 roles separate. The project was so red that red was not enough to say about the project. It's getting a tremendous amount of enterprise attention. There was a tremendous benefit in keeping the roles separate because this is a highly regulated environment. The project had been unmanaged for, yes, most of the 18 months of its life. The budget had been unmanaged since Q4 the previous year. The team was in pretty rough shape. The vendor was managing the project. There were major governance issues to deal with, and that keeps me in the PM role extremely busy. The person who we asked to come into the Scrum Master role is actually the current president of the chapter of PMI, traditional project manager type background, who had been teaching the ACP curriculum for some period of time. Previously, many years ago, early on in the adoption of Agile, got training from Ken Schwaber, did a little bit of Scrum Master work, and we find that we can partner well because of our similar backgrounds. I can provide space for agility to recover. I can understand the terminology, the concepts of things that the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the Scrum team are trying to do. I can translate it, and I can put a governance wrapper around it for the PMO. The PMO, of course, had been a little bit skeptical. This is not the first time I've encountered this. I've probably encountered it in 4 organizations now where we've had a traditional PMO and Scrum either emerging or recovering, and someone who understands traditional project management, Agile and Scrum particularly, can turn things around more easily and answer questions on both sides of the fence with a greater sense of projecting a greater sense of competence and authority because you actually do have the job. So
Jean, I wanted to jump in here. Hi, Jean. I wanted to jump in for just a second. We did have a question come in, and I think you were just paging back through the slides that it applied to, too. We had someone ask the 17,500 Scrum Masters number that you quoted. Is that the total number of Scrum Masters currently?
No, it is not the total number of Scrum Masters currently, and this data, as you can see, is 2 years old at least, and this is just from one source. This came out of Indeed. I can tell you, let's see, can I give you, I can get that number for you if it's that important. It's certainly in the tens of thousands. Last time I checked, there were about 28 certified Scrum coaches and 150 certified Scrum trainers. The numbers of qualified Scrum professionals is much lower than the numbers of qualified PMPs.
Thanks a lot for that answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much.
So when can we stop doing Agile kind of heads in the direction of, yes, what are your career plans? Just a couple of nights ago, another project management process consultant and I did a presentation to a group of project managers, and we were talking about how predictive and adaptive or Agile project management work together, and the fact that they are and will continue to change each other. The very fact that we now have extension to the PMBOK for software that is so Agile heavy and is half the size of the PMBOK says something about what Agile is doing. Not just Agile, but Agile and Lean together. Lean has been around longer. Agile kind of came out of Lean, and we're seeing that there's value in drawing lean back in again. So it's really Agile and lean, and the ACP acknowledges that. So what was the Project Management Day? It was last fall, and the International Institute for Learning, I think it was, offered a day of free training, which was really quite good training, and you could dial into it. And I attended their day of training, a number of good presentations. If you are on their mailing list and get their notification next year, I encourage that you attend. But here's something that was really interesting. Now, people don't necessarily use the term Agile. They don't use agility, product owner, scrum master, XP coach, that kind of thing. But they are using the concepts that are under Agile. And if you've got an Agile background, you'll spot them. So this guy, president of International Center for Complex Project Management, in his presentation was talking about problems faced by project managers in large projects, regardless of sector or nature of the complexity, that are by nature complex. He says there is increasing evidence that new ways of thinking that draw upon accumulated knowledge of a systems approach can equip project managers and program managers with the methodologies that give better results. The real challenge for Agile project managers or people who are moving into a more Agile approach to their work is they do have to build those systems thinking skills. The project manager's job rapidly becomes either instantiating or spotting and helping to tune an Agile system. They have to learn to lead very differently, to appropriately stay outside the group, to build facilitative skills rather than directive skills, facilitative skills that help the system cohere and function well. And also they have to be able to notice the subtle ways in which the system can be weakened, have gone wrong, or need some optimization, and know either what lever to pull or who to go talk to, and generally as a product owner or a scrum master or someone like that, rather than stepping in and directing a specific change. So having that systems background is really important, as this project management expert pointed out in his presentation. So we got through, well, we've got one more slide here. No, we don't have one more slide on Denny. We got through these slides pretty quickly, largely because I just talked the whole time and people weren't interrupting. Are there any questions?
I have one question. What advice would you give for someone trying to transition from a traditional project management role to becoming a Scrum Master?
I get that question a lot because of the role that I'm in. And I asked them a couple of questions. One is, why do you want to do it? What's your purpose? And what are you trying to transition to? Is it Agile project management, or do you want to be a Scrum Master, or do you want to be a coach? What are you after? Maybe you're interested in project ownership. And then there's usually some training or a book that I can suggest to them. For instance, if a lot of project managers are interested in product ownership because they're really interested in business analysis and business change management. So I suggest Agile Product Management with Scrum by Roman Pickler. That's a very short little book, and when I'm working with clients who don't have time, interest, or money, whatever the problem may be, to send an aspiring product owner or an appointed product owner to training, I recommend that little book. If they think they want to be a Scrum Master, I ask them why, and I start drawing pictures and showing them how the project management role is spread across the Scrum Master, the product owner, and the team. The team, for instance, takes on tasking. The Scrum Master is a facilitative servant leader. They are all about project integration and process and removing impediments, which tends to be risk and issue handling. And they are very much like, Ken Schwaber called them a sheepdog, but some people tell me it's more of a livestock guardian dog, because you go in with the flock and you keep them safe from kind of inside the flock. And if they're interested in being an Agile project manager, then we talk about the ACP, we talk about Michelle Sliger and Stacia Broderick's book, the Agile Project or the Software Project Manager's Bridge to Agility, which is really good. I have a client that I am starting a book discussion group on that. if they're in strictly the product space rather than an IT space, and I think a lot of people in government are more of an IT space, but some may be in a product space. And we talk about Jim Highsmith's book, Agile Project Management. I think it's titled Delivering Great Products or something like that. And if they think they want to be an Agile Project Manager, I suggest the reading first and really looking at the leadership skills. And I ask them, what about project management interests them? And if they like helping people grow, Agile Project Management may be a good approach for them. The Scrum Master may be a good approach for them. And I really, if we've got the time, start talking about things like systems thinking and facilitated servant leadership. And I watch to see whether their eyes light up, and depending on what the topic is, I give them something else to read. And I really watch to see if they go off and do these things on their own. There are lots of people who are interested in entering the field right now because it's lucrative, because it's expanding, because it's sexy, and people can be attracted to any aspect of that. But if they're not willing to be self-motivated learners and not willing to really do personal change, get some Agile buddies and think these things through together, then they're going to be a kind of, I don't know, some people would say lipstick on a pig, but I say frosting on the cake sometimes. It'll be Agile on the outside, but in the inside it's still traditional. When the going gets tough, people start telling. So I guess that's kind of how I go at the conversation. There's not one piece of advice for everyone. It's where you're coming from and where you think you want to go to and why.
Okay. I think you might have hinted at the answer to our next question, but for someone transitioning from a traditional project management role to either an Agile project manager or a Scrum Master, what's the biggest shock to the system there? Where's the culture shock? Where does that really surface for someone making that transition?
About 4 years ago, there was someone who wrote a dissertation on this, actually. And she studied anxiety in project managers when Agile moved into their workplace. And the key issue that she found was that there is decision uncertainty in Agile. And project managers have been taught to lock things down, make things precise, exact, and be able to predict. And Agile says, we can't predict. And project managers with traditional backgrounds typically have a hard time with that. And the next piece is they have to change their approach to power and accountability and realize that they should no longer allow themselves to be in the space of the single person responsible for delivering the project, because the reality is in Agile, and frankly always has been, as a lot of traditional project managers know, you can't deliver it without the team. You can't deliver it without the analyst or the product owner or the customer. This really is a group effort, and the whole notion of the project was successful, the project manager survived, and that's just a hallmark of really dysfunctional project management, and we've lived with it for a long time.
All right, thanks for that answer. Our next question is, do you think that Agile, the Agile style of project management will eventually just become the standard and the term Agile will fade away, or do you think that there will always be that push to be more Agile until there will be the old guard and then the new guard that are pushing the envelope?
Well, I think there will continue to be many different approaches to project management. And the term Agile may fade away, but it could take a long time. Certainly there are core Agilists who have already headed off in another direction to do something more radical than Agile. And people who started the Agile movement who are worried about organizations like PMI coming into that space and kind of making it their own. There's always going to probably be a need for predictive and adaptive approaches, and that's what we were talking about the other night. Project management is done in many, many spaces, and as long as what you're doing is malleable, or if it's a high rate of change in requirements, or you get value from early insight, or you can elaborate your product, progressively elaborate your product, then there's a space for Agile. But if there's very, very high cost for rework, like You can be agile in the design and planning stages of bridge building, but being agile in actual bridge building is probably not a very good approach.
Right. Great. So we had a request for a little more clarification on one of our earlier questions about the number of Scrum Masters. They followed up and asked, the rate that you quoted, was that the number of jobs that month or the total number for the January 13th, the point in time?
Let's go back to this slide. This is a point in time slide from Indeed. And you can see what the trend is. And we can get these kind of statistics from lots of different places. The trend tends to be about the same no matter where you go to look for the statistics.
Okay. All right. I don't have any questions in the queue. Just wanted to throw that out to the audience there and say if you have any questions, send them in right now. It would be great to keep this going. Otherwise, I know Jean does have a plane to catch, so we might just give her a few extra minutes to get there. I know how much fun getting through the airport can be. Okay. Same person following up, just asking, are these USA numbers or global numbers?
These, I believe, are USA numbers. Is this person, and it sounds like it is one person,
yes, I think we found our resident data geek here.
Yeah. If this person wants some numbers from various sources coming from inside and outside the Agile community, I can get those numbers together and send them off. There are going to be a number of different sources. Here's the odd thing about this. When I wanted to make this more relevant locally, there were a number of sourcing or staffing agencies, mid to large size, that I talked to and asked them to analyze based on the data they have in their databases, and none of them could really slice the data that way. That's why I resorted, after looking at this national snapshot, actually going and pulling several months of job postings that PMI had released locally and started counting number of postings and number requiring Agile background. I think it's worthwhile to look at both Agile and non-Agile sources. I guess I'm kind of interested to know why the question is coming up. What's the person trying to get at here?
Okay. Let's see. We've got a little more information from them. Let's see. It says I think they said they were looking for a summation. They're looking for a summation statement on this whole thing, sort of a thesis sentence on when can we stop doing Agile. If you could sum that up in a few words.
Oh, I see. Well, I think I kind of did that earlier on. You can stop doing Agile depending on your sector, and we can go back to that slide. Depending on your sector, you can stop doing Agile if you are interested in retiring early or transitioning to some other kind of work. In information technology, it's harder and harder to find a workplace where you can build or implement software, and they're not either doing Agile now, having tried it, or heading back to it. And same kinds of problems often in consulting, and they find those backgrounds really attractive in consulting and financial services. And if you're familiar with the report from the federal CIO a couple of years ago saying that Agile was the way they wanted to see software projects done in government. Now, it's been a few years since I've consulted in government, but I know we were seeing, ironically, both interest in Agile and interest in earned value management. I don't know where it stands now. The question, when can we stop doing Agile, you can stop anytime you want, depending on your interest in being employed in your field. If you're a software developer and there is any interest in Agile in your organization, and there very likely is, you can resist all you want, but if the benefits are proven, then the benefits are proven, and those are really attractive kinds of things that organizations are after. These metrics are what they're finding when they do Agile well. They are on time, on budget, meeting goals and business objectives, meeting and exceeding ROI.
All right, great. Well, I think that's a good stopping point. We're out of questions in the queue here. I know you need to get to your plane. So I just wanted to thank everybody for their questions. Thank you, Jean, for joining us. Next week, we're going to have Adam Light from SOTEC Advisors joining to talk about using adaptive planning and agile methods to deliver value from an advanced infrastructure project. And it's quite a mouthful, but Adam is also a big proponent of systems thinking when it comes to these things, and also a student of adaptive design. So you and Adam should talk one of these days, Jean.
Actually, Adam and I are currently consulting together.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, well, there you go. Birds of a feather. So anyway, everybody, you can find out more about what's coming up, and you can view our previously recorded webinars, including this one, at ocio.wa.gov/agile-fridays. You can also connect with other Agile practitioners in our new Agile community at yammer.com/agile-community. A big thanks to Jean, AzureGate, and Results Washington for helping to make Agile Fridays a success. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Jean.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.